Welcome back. Sunita Williams is rocketing her way back to Earth, and let's be honest, it's got us all over the moon, with her spacecraft set to make a dramatic 3:27 a.m. splashdown in Florida. It feels like the cosmos itself is rolling out on a celestial carpet. Some homecomings are sweet, but this one, it's simply out of this world. Well, let's just quickly introduce our guests at this point. I'm being joined by Suresh Nayak, who's a former group director for ISRO, Pranava Sharma, who's an astronomer and space historian, as well as Vinod Srivastava, who's a former ISRO scientist. Okay, let's just have the guests on screen with us at this point. Thank you very much. Do we have Pranava Sharma with us?
Yes.
Okay, Pranava Sharma. Yes, good evening, sir. Sir, what are we expecting once the splash happens?
Can you repeat your question again? I lost you there.
Mr. Pranava Sharma, what are we expecting as the splash happens? As Sunita Williams, the team, splashes down, what are we expecting?
Well, it's a very standard procedure. Once the splashdown happens, it's a long procedure in the sense that when they enter atmosphere, the atmospheric re-entry is a tricky part, and then the two sets of parachutes will get deployed, one at about 5,000 meters, the other one at about 2,000 meters. And then when the splashdown happens, the Crew Dragon will be landing in a predetermined recovery zone, which is off the coast of Florida. The flotation systems, the flotation devices which are installed in the module will stabilize the spacecraft on water surface. Then the recovery vessel will go and recover, with the recovery team, will recover the capsule, will ensure that safety checks are done. There's no hazardous fumes that are coming out, there's no debris. And then they'll retrieve, the crew will be taken out, and then it will be taken to immediate medical evaluation. Then they'll return to the shore, and then for a few weeks they'll be under rehabilitation and research, and what is happening in their bones, how is their heart functioning, how their cognitive functions holding on. So all of those things will happen as soon as they come back.
Right. In fact, Pranav, could you give us a perspective on just when you look at what's happened over the last 9 months for something that was supposed to have been just 8 days? Could you put this in perspective for us when it comes to space history?
Well, it is something which is unusual. It really never happens that you go to space unprepared. And you never design missions which go beyond your designated dates. So this is actually a very historic moment, in not only in space history, but also in the history of humankind, that we were able to sustain 2 human beings for more than the extended period that they were designated to in space, which is absolutely unforgiving. And I think this helps us understand a couple of very interesting facts about human body. And it helps us understand how does the human mind function in the absence of a lot of things. But as a matter of fact, if you're looking at time elapsed for them and the time elapsed for us it's 9 months. But in space, it's just 7.5 microseconds. So it's barely anything. But from that barely, the real perspective is that in that barely any.
Okay, we seem to have lost the line. Vinod Srivastava, if we can get you in at this point. Thank you for your patience, sir. Vinod Srivastava, a question that everybody is asking. You know, Prime Minister wrote a letter today welcoming Sunita, Bharat ki beti, as it were. How how is India looking at this? How is India looking at the return of not just Sunita Williams, but this entire team? What's in there for India?
Okay, let me recall my experience with the experiment that is called Satellite Recovery Experiment, SRE, which was carried by the PSLV flight in 2007. A satellite called SRE, it is similar to the capsule in which Sunita Williams is returning. It was launched from a PSLV rocket in the low Earth orbit about 300 kilometers. Orbiting for about 7 days, it was flashed down about 170 kilometers from the shore of Sriharikota. Now today's situation is similar. The capsule, which was independently flying, now here the capsule has been retracted from International Space Station. His velocity, his orientation, his attitude, all will be controlled because it is moving at the velocity about 28,000 kilometers per hour. And it is to re-enter in the atmosphere. So whenever any item and re-enter in the atmosphere, it generates a heat which is around about 3,500 Fahrenheit or equivalent to about 7 degrees Celsius, will be around 1,200 Celsius. And it has to enter in the atmosphere at one particular angle. Otherwise, it can reflect back or it may burn off fully. So now today, the situation, the capsule which has been detached or deorbited from the station, which is carrying the 4 astronauts, including Sunita Williams, for which the Prime Minister has written a letter. Now, when we look at these experiments or in our future program, which we are listening that we are going to send a person in the space, we are planning a person to send in the moon. So all the inputs, now when Sunita Williams is there for about 9 months in the space or the zero gravity, whatever the biological things are happening in the body, how she is acting. Tomorrow, if we have to send a person to the Saturn, which it takes about 6 months to going and 6 months to coming, about 1 year in the space, how it will like. So all this will be taken as an input for the future programming of the system. Since this program, which was made for the 2 days for Sunita Williams, she will go by a newly developed rocket, stay at the station, and return in the 2 days or 3 days of stay there. But since the Starliner could not make it because of their thrusters were not worthwhile, where the human can take, but it was worthwhile to take the goods or whatever they left out in the space station. They were given ample time, Starliner, to improve their system, to improve their thrusters, so that she can come in the same yacht or the same aircraft or a spacecraft while she went there. But since they could not make it, and International Space Station has a routine program. There's a time for the crew 9 people to stay for how many days, then the crew 10 will come. So when they were not able to make an aircraft for which to be developed and certified for the human flight from Earth to space station, so she was given by another crew.
Okay.
She went in the crew 10 and returning with the astronauts of the crew 9. So this is all about when you are in space. There are ample of safety precautions are there. If one system fails, the second will take over. If the second doesn't work, the third will take over. So like these 3 options or 3 or more options are there for an astronaut to feel very happy in the space. Though we at the Earth, we feel she is stranded, she could not come out from there. But actual programming in the space, if you see as a space scientist, we will have so many backup programs. If this doesn't work, we will go on this track. Or what you say, the plan A, plan B, or plan C, like this. All the things were there. Now, since she is from the Indian origin, so we have a special love and affection for our people who go in the space. That's why you are hearing the people are praying for her for the safe return, and so many pujas and other stuff going on. So that's what I would like to say.
Right. If I can just get you, Pranav Sharma, again. Pranav Sharma, you were talking about the physical changes that would happen. A lot of eagerness for people to know because, this generation particularly hasn't seen or heard of something like this. What are we expecting? I mean, there's a lot that's been said and written about the changes, whether it be about eyesight, whether about aging, about baby feet. Would you want to put this in perspective for us? You may have to unmute yourself, Pranav.
Sorry. In absence of gravity, a lot of bodily functions do not behave under very standard protocols as we understand medically. So in the absence of gravity, which is they're basically living in microgravity and no gravity. So and as you understand that you need force to for your muscles to be in a certain shape. So muscle loss is something which is completely understood that it will happen. There's bone density reduction that is experienced in microgravity climates. Uh, Vision impairment basically happens because the intercranial pressure keeps on changing because there's practically no gravity, there's no atmospheric pressure. So our bodies will function in a way that they're stuck by gravity and they're maintained by the atmospheric pressure. So in the absence of both of these crucial, rather cardinal elements for your health to function properly, it changes a lot of things. But the most important thing that I think would be interesting to understand is how much radiation exposure that they've gone through in those 9 months. As I said, that space is an unforgiving place that we don't get that much of radiation because of Earth's magnetic field, but in space that doesn't exist. So there's solar flares, there's intergalactic radiation, there's interstellar radiation, cosmic radiation. There's all several kind of radiation exposure they've gone through. And the question that scientists would be asking is how does it impact the the DNA structure, or does it impact DNA structure? Are they at risk of cell multiplications, erratic cell multiplications, those kind of things? But on the top of it, there are other, of course, psychological and mental health challenges. You're basically in isolation and confinement for 9 months, and that induces certain kind of stress, that induces certain kind of fatigue. Of course, it's a beautiful place up there, space up there, and it is majestic and everything. But after some time, it 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 gets weary. It's just you alone doing the things that you're supposed to do. So that kind, if you are headstrong, then you sustain. If you're not that
Right.
headstrong, then there are other things that one would feel, and actually we'll know once they come back of what kind of
That's true.
mental stress and fatigue that they've gone through.
That's true.
The other things that impact human space flight, human space programs in space is sleep disturbances, because the circadian cycle completely goes haywire because there's 16 sunrises and sunset in space when you are aboard International Space Station. So your body is just not able to understand when on what clock one functions. If there's a 12-hour clock, is it a 24-hour clock, is it a
Right.
90-hour clock? So all of those things get become immaterial. The cycle of the sun becomes immaterial, and there've been nutritional challenges because the food is limited, the amount of food they can eat is limited, their weightlessness induces digestive issues. As you understand that gravity helps you to
Right.
digest your food. In the absence of gravity, it sometimes causes nausea and it sometimes causes discomfort. So all of those
Okay.
things will
Okay.
become primary questions to ask once both of these brilliant
Absolutely.
astronauts come
In fact,
back.
I'm just left with a minute. So let me just go across to Vinod Srivastava. Vinod Srivastava, last question, a minute to you, sir. Very quickly, if you could tell us, I mean, one, obviously you have the government-run institutions and then you have private players. This possibly, again, just showing the formidable, not just foray, but also the space presence of private players for that matter.
I don't agree with you, because whether it's a private affairs or the government, all are funded by the government. The workers who are carrying out the work, they do as per the guidelines made by the organization. In our case, it is the ISRO, Indian Space Organization.
Okay.
He made the guidelines for the private players. Similarly, for the NASA also, NASA is a guiding factor. Whether it goes to Starliner or it goes to another company
Sure.
or so many private, they cannot deviate from the. When the Sunita Williams went in the last aircraft, where out of the 15 testers, the 13 were in good conditions. So they don't want to deviate the safety guidelines already written and approved by various committees. Unless these are qualified as the minimum requirement, the spacecraft cannot detach from the main aircraft and re-enter the atmosphere with the crew members. However, they are certified that last
Okay.
airliner to enter in the atmosphere with the goods material. So that's why the things will take place. And whether it is a private player or it is a government player,
Okay.
it will not change the attitude of the policies. So now
Okay,
in our
but
case, when we are
very
developing,
quickly, Pranav, do you agree with that? Do you have the same line or do you have a different perspective? 30 seconds. We're totally out of time.
can you repeat the question? Some disturbance came here.
Pranav Sharma, do you agree with what Vinod just spoke about? Do you agree with Vinod Srivastava, or do you have a different perspective about it, about the private players also making a very formidable foray into the space rush, as it were?
I think it's a great thing to do. It democratizes everything. It's the best thing that has happened so far to space. Because then it brings in competition, it brings in accountability, it brings in transparency. And that is something which really de-escalates the kind of space race that we have seen in the 70s and the 80s. It's a good thing, it's a great thing.
Okay, we'll just end it at that. I mean, everybody is just looking forward for the return of the team from space and, of course, Sunita Williams. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you, Pranav Sharma. Thank you, Vinod Srivastava, for joining us. Thank you so much.